But where I think we've maybe gone a little bit awry is that the sort of hunt for low spin, high launch bombs are for everybody.
Okay. Low spin, high launch, low accuracy.
Yeah.
Is what that sort of leads to, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, I think there's a very good phrase the pro at Warrington used to use, and I would imagine a lot of golf pros use this out there when they talk to some of their lessons, and they would say when they're hitting the drivers, well, you're suffering with loft. You know what I'm going to say?
Go on.
Lack of something, talent.
Yeah.
But I think loft and spin, if we got the ball spinning a little bit more, would that be better for golfers? Would that help golfers out?
For
because
the vast majority of golfers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
three woods are easy to hit, aren't they?
Yeah. Well,
like how many people fall back on a 3-wood when driver's not going well?
off the tee, yes.
Yeah.
Off the deck's probably a different story, which is where next week's video or this week's video goes into. People really struggle with 3-wood off the deck a lot of the time. But yeah, in terms of a replacement for a driver, or people finding mini drivers easier to hit because it's got a bit more loft, because it's spinning a little bit more.
Yeah.
It's not travelling as far when it's going offline. So yes, there's definitely the low spinning. To go along with that, I feel like everyone's going for the sort of the stiffer shaft as well.
Yeah.
So it's like low spinning head, a little bit of a stiffer shaft.
Yeah.
It goes a mile when I get my 10 out of 10 swing on it.
Mm.
What happens when you don't get your 10 out of 10 swing on it?
We should know.
And
Tell us.
Topped, left, right.
Bad, isn't it?
Rough trees.
I'm going through this actual thought process at the minute, and I've just been texting Alex, who's the tour manager from Mizuno. I've just sent him a list, and I apologise for what I've sent him because I must be just doing his head in, because I'm hitting driver okay, and when I get driver well, it goes good. And we sort of hear about this sort of like 2-2 spin number, or you're launching it around about 13 degrees with 2,200 revs of spin, maybe a little bit lower. Perfect. But if you're a 24 handicapper, that's going to be hard to do, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not doing you any favours.
And going back to the loft, I think because of where we were sort of sold with, marketing, high launch, low spin, it's the future. Yes, golf clubs have got more forgiving, and yes, they're coming off faster, and they are a little bit harder to shape. But when I played my golf day the other day with 2 amateurs, and there was another 20 amateurs in the field, didn't see many bullet straight drives.
No.
And I think adding more loft to a lot of people's drivers, like we see mini drivers now, like you've just alluded to a second ago. Mini drivers are becoming popular, almost faddy, I would say. Can't hit my driver. I'm going to get an 11.5 degree.
Would you say they're becoming popular?
I've seen a lot more of them in people's bags, yeah.
I've still not seen many.
Yeah.
I feel like they're getting released a bit more.
Yeah.
I'm thinking maybe 2-3 people I teach over the last year have probably come in with them.
Yeah.
I don't feel like they're quite getting out there as much as maybe the manufacturers thought they'd be able to push them.
Yeah. Maybe, yeah, tour players aren't using them as much, so that's always one. Reviews
Matt Fryer's not using them.
Well, I used one, and I was like, this is great, but why don't I just get an 11.5 degree driver, which is one of the things that I've messaged Al about, saying, well, if I, obviously we're doing the series where I'm trying to win my first pro comp, it's not long golf courses I'm playing, generally like 6,100. If I could take 15 yards off my driver, but I knew it was going relatively straight every time, like with a bit more spin. Yeah. Like, great.
Well, I've just done it with the driver change I've just had, because I had the Cobra LS, which when I hit it well, was massive. If I was confident enough to try and hit it high, exactly what you're describing there. If I was swinging it well enough to hit it high, it was going a mile. It was out driving people I was playing with most of the time. The ball speed was up there faster, and then I've now started using... now got a new driver. I'm on the Callaway, and the ball speed's down 6 mile per hour, 5 mile per hour.
Yeah,
it's barely missing a fairway.
Yeah,
and it's absolutely fine. And my golf has been in a more comfortable position for the last 2-3 months.
Yeah,
I'm in the middle of more fairways. I've still got, like you say, wedge in my hand most of the time.
Yeah.
I don't need that extra distance, but that probably not leads us into strategy yet. But I think a lot of this will link into the fact that people's strategy is, I need to bomb it as far as I can. maybe before they should be thinking that. I don't know.
But if you got more loft on your driver as well, or you got a higher spinning, like you said, I'm going to get a stiffer shaft again. Something I've asked Alex, should I maybe switch to a stiff shaft?
Yeah.
Like if I get instead of having X-Flex and everything, if I get a stiffer version of a stiff, will that put the spin up? Will that keep me on the straight and narrow? Because if I can do that, I'm fine hitting a 6-iron into a green. I know I'm not going to have any 6-irons into the greens because I'll hit it round about 285 through the air. And generally the par through fours are around 400 under that. So I'm like, And that looked like, I think, do we now, maybe as amateurs who are listening to this, maybe swallow a bit of pride and I think, maybe start trying higher lofted drivers. We definitely saw when I worked at one of the pro shops, I think it was a Cleveland driver, I want to say. They did a 13.5 and a 15.5. And the seniors section went mad for the 15.5. Full head, full 460cc. Yes, they were spinning it more, but they were popping it up in the air. And then you're obviously getting more carry as well.
Exactly, yeah. Once your swing speed slows down to that point where you're talking seniors, they need all loft to get it in the air anyway.
Optimum launch conditions. But
Yeah.
I think we've just sort of we've got stuck in a sort of a rut that, 10.5 is as much loft as we want to go for.
Yeah, people see 10.5 as high loft.
Yeah, and you go, well, it's not that much. Like, yes, the ball's going to launch high, but if we need some spin, like again, 3 woods, a lot of people will fall back on a fairway wood, like, I'm not driving it well. Well, why don't you have the longer shaft, the bigger head? Just add a bit more loft on it, so it makes it easier to use.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah,
I think you've helped everyone there.
Yeah, I think
no doubt.
It'd be interesting, and then obviously you've got someone and you've got to take like the pros are just totally different beasts, aren't they?
We cannot sit there and relate ourselves to tour pros and buy the equipment because they've got it.
It'd be like me trying to set my car up like Lewis Hamilton.
Crash.
That's not going to end well.
Crash and burn.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's one thing that I think, when you're looking at your equipment at the moment, specifically your driver, if you are really struggling with it, just maybe go try a little bit more loft, maybe try that slightly softer shaft that could maybe pump the spin up and just see how that affects your performance. You could maybe, you could borrow something or just crack, most drivers nowadays have the changeable necks on them that have got, generally 2 degrees, so that at 10.5 can become 12. No one's going to inspect it. Like if you turn up to the first tee with your mates and you pull out your ping and it's got 10.5, and you go, whoa, Steve, what's that? Crank that up, have you? Not playing with us, 12.5, boy, off you go. Like, give it a go. If you then drive it better, you could, meet in the middle, 11.5, and see how that affects your performance.
Yeah, I'm just thinking into lessons now, or people who come in and they will always say, I'm not that bothered about distance as long as I'm hitting it straight. And then you see them swing a golf club, and it's all about distance. Yeah. The speed, the aggression in it, the tempo in it really quick. You kind of think, well, in your head, I know you're thinking you don't want to hit it far, but your technique's saying you do. And I think that does lead into
why are you lying?
The equipment is standing there on the first tee, and I just want to hit it past this guy.
Yeah.
I just want to hit it past me 3 mates on a Saturday.
Yeah.
So even if you're trying to maybe tone your swing down a bit to swing within yourself, you want the equipment to try and give you that extra few yards, and you think that 9.5 degrees will do that for you, 9 degrees, but it won't.
No.
That'll just make you go sideways.
Erratic.
Exactly.
Okay, so we're both agreed on that one, that loft is actually our friend.
We had a conversation last week about we're not disagreeing enough, and you're going to have to do better than that to make me argue with you, basically.
We're not about arguments today. We are about helping people get better. Okay. Wrong golf clubs in the bag, and this is specifically, this is one that I saw so much when I was at Trafford. Like clubs that are maybe doing duplicate jobs, clubs that are ill-fitted to you, clubs that are not right for the the conditions that you're playing in, the job that you're trying to, or the shot you're trying to achieve. That club is not adequate for that. So, what would you say on that?
I think a big one you've said there are the duplicate clubs.
Yeah,
there's a lot of people with a 4-iron and, I'll be honest, a 4-iron and a 5-iron, and they realise that they strike the 5-iron really nicely, and the 4-iron probably just needs a hybrid instead.
Yeah,
because they can hit it better. a lot of the time with the duplicate club, I'd say it's the education of people not being aware of what every club does, exactly what every club does. And then I think people want to have the longer irons in the bag. The 2-iron, again, go back to looking cool or
Looking like
thinking you should have one. So I've got this 2-iron, but it's got a graphite shaft in it because I love hitting it off the tee. Great, it's not needed. The 4-iron, because I like the 4-iron. Part of the problem these days, I think, is to go and get yourself a 4 hybrid. We're talking upwards of £200 these days. So it's a tough bite to go, I'm buying a set of irons.
Yeah.
And I'm going to stop at the 5-iron.
Yeah.
The 4-iron, which I could get for maybe 80, 90 quid in the set.
Yeah.
I'm going to substitute and swap it for something that's £220, £240. That's a tough pill to swallow, I suppose.
Yes.
Might have a bit of a might be the reason people are doing it, but I think when we get to the top end of the bag, there's a lot of mistakes. And then I think when we get to the bottom end of the bag, that's where the other mistakes come.
Used to infuriate me.
Let's split now what you've just said. Let's split it into two first of all.
Yeah.
Go top of the bag first. So let's talk hybrids, 5 woods, 3 woods.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw a question back at you about 3 woods. Do you think there should be as many 3 woods knocking about as there are?
Yeah. We did a video on them saying, is it a pointless club, and what do you actually use it for? When you speak to a lot of amateurs, it's like, I'm struggling to get to the par 4s in 2, so I've got this 3 wood, but I just can't hit it. And it's like, well, it's actually hard to, it's maybe the hardest shot in golf.
Yeah, it's tough.
Hit off
apart from a 70-yard bunker shot.
Yeah.
Hardest shot in golf.
Yeah, well, I prefer one of them. They're not like I like those.
I hate them.
But, sometimes you got a tight lie with a 3 wood trying to pick it off cleanly and get it launched. And it's hard, but do you maybe need a 7 wood? So I think, on that end of the bag, and again, this will lead into the sort of the bottom end of the bag as well. That I saw a lot of people with, like you said, the driving irons. Like, they were faddy, I think, for a while. Rory had one for a bit. Look at this new TaylorMade TP driving iron. Gorgeous golf club, amazing. But you need to be swinging it over, 110, launching it high, and actually creating the factors you need to get the most out of that golf club. Yep. They're not overly versatile. They might be, good off the fairway, and they'll be good off the tee. What they won't be great is that out of the rough, they're not going to be the easiest to use. Yeah. So would a hybrid be better for you? Especially as a higher handicapper, would you need one of a 3 and a 4 hybrid, or a 3 and a 5 hybrid to replace those long irons? So I think there's 3 wood maybe, but
I'm thinking if we link it back to the driver we just said about, and we were to suggest to people, don't be too worried about dropping your driver to 12.5.
Yeah.
Maybe then knock your 3 wood down to a 5 wood as well.
Yeah.
So you've made your driver more accurate.
Yeah.
A little bit shorter, granted.
Yeah.
But then why not make your 3 wood that you may be struggling to hit, why not turn that into a 5 wood as well? Which again, I know we drop distance a little bit, but we're a little bit more accurate again.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm just pulling up something here from our video tonight, and I can actually see what every single golfer, thanks to ShotScope with all their stats, what the average set makeup is here. Okay. So a lot of high woods. It's interesting when you get to over 16 handicap or over 15 handicap, 5 wood only really starts to appear there.
Okay. What's that, 16 to 20, but it's not really there for 11 to 15?
No, you see driver, 3 wood, 3 hybrid, 4 hybrid, then 5 iron, which I think's right, maybe. Yeah. Depending on that gap between the 3 wood and the 3 hybrid.
Yeah.
When we see, this is sort of 1 to 5, we're seeing driver, 3 wood, 3 hybrid, 4 iron, 4 wedges in that bag. It's interesting, up at the other end, from 15 and above, we only see 3 wedges.
Yeah.
Now,
understandable.
That's understandable, yeah. And then when you're seeing
everyone's got a putter, all players.
Yeah,
all handicap categories.
And a driver.
Mental.
Yeah. But it's interesting because I think maybe that sort of 6 to 15 handicap bracket, I think maybe that there's a bit of scope there for a bit of improvement. If you're around about 15, I'd say you're probably not getting up to every single par 4 in 2, are you? So is that 3 hybrid enough to? Would a 5 would maybe be better there? Because that's going to be easier to launch a little bit more.
Yep.
Get a little bit more distance out of it, still get the forgiveness. And do, like, if you want to see all these stats, go and check out the video that we've just released. It's the Have You Bought the Wrong One? Fairway wood versus hybrid and iron. And it's quite interesting that, because I think that it sets itself up for the bottom end of the bag as well.
Just before you go on to that, I think just before we talk about wedges, I think that's really interesting because I'm looking at the sort of 16 to 25 handicap range there, which obviously a lot of people who walk into Trafford where I teach, a lot of people who walk into for lessons for the first time are up in that category, maybe even just above 25 because they haven't got the handicap yet.
Up there, aren't they?
But I think what we've got to realise from all the shot scope numbers there is that's people who've invested in a lot of equipment already because they've got shot scope and they've probably got to set up the drive for them. And I think if you're a higher handicap of 16 to 30 and that isn't your setup and you're sitting there with 3 irons in your bag, because I see a lot of people who are coming in with granddad's old set out of the garage with a 3 iron. Go and get it sorted as quick as you can, because on that video they're people who've invested in the game. They've bought themselves a shot scope watch and using the tech. They're proper weekend golfers. So if you're just trying to get into it, become a weekend golfer who's looking to improve instead of granddad's 3 iron blade.
Exactly.
With a graphite shaft.
That's it. You see some
and a grip
sets,
falling apart.
If you are in that category as well, where you've maybe invested in second-hand clubs from 10, 15 years ago, does that set still have a 3 iron? Do you need it? Are you going it's going to be so hard to hit? So that would be, I think it'd be interesting. And it comes down to gapping as well, because I see a lot of people who have 3 woods and 5 woods who actually hit them the same distance. And you go, okay, well, do you need the 3 wood then? No, because 5 wood's going as
exactly.
just as close, and it's probably a little bit easier to hit as well. So you could get a 3 wood, a 5 wood, a 3 hybrid, a 4 hybrid, and maybe even a 5 hybrid now, because you got rid of that 3 wood. Because your 5 iron's pretty hard to hit still.
You've just spent a lot of money on hybrids.
You could do, but you could go and buy them second hand, couldn't you, and actually see some improvement? Because if you're at that end of that scope as well, you're not hitting 8 and 9 irons into par 4s for your second shots. You're probably spending more time with a longer club in your hand on a par 3 for a second shot into a par 4 for your layup on a par 5. So make it easier by getting the easier ones to use. Which then, I think then my third one for technology, which lends nicely, and I think this is because of manufacturers. This has purely happened. Again, something that I'm questioning, and I was trying to get the stats beforehand, and I couldn't quite find them from tour players. 4 wedges, too many or not?
Are we classing pitch and wedge in this?
Pitch and wedge,
pitch and wedge included. I think for your average golfer, I'd definitely say yes. As you get into your lower handicaps, I think it purely depends. If you can have 3 wedges and you feel competent, and I suppose let's talk about your game. You're good enough that if you were to need to hit a knockdown gap wedge, you can. If you're a player who's maybe playing off 8 and 9 and you don't practice all the time because you don't have time, so you need to have full swings, you might want closer gapping. So you kind of go, okay, I'm playing off 8. I don't practice every week, so I don't learn the knockdown shot. I like a full swing. Then create some good gapping. And if you're a higher handicap, then have yourself a pitch and wedge, a sand wedge, and possibly start to move into a lob wedge, maybe a 58, and only use that to get out of jail if you need to. Other than that,
I'm thinking of going to 52, 58, because I'm like, there's too many options here now. I grew up with a 52 and a 58.
From 52 straight into pitch and wedge then, or 9-9?
Pitch and wedge.
Okay, so you're still keeping 3.
So I'll keep 3 and go 6 degrees between each pretty much. Because pitch and wedge is 44, I think it is, or 45 in my set, so it's going to be a little bit more. It's going to be 7 degrees, and then it would be 6 degrees in that one. But I'm like, well, I don't really use my 54 because it's an in-between one that I can hit from 80 yards in with a 58. If I want to flight them lower, I'll just use a 52, or I use my 50 generally. this 54's just sat there, and then when I get chipping round the greens, now I'm like, is it the 54? Is it the 58? Is it this? And I go through sort of ups and downs with whether you should have 3 or 4, and also should you use one club for chipping. You like, if you go down the Shane Lowry method, get really good with one wedge.
Yeah.
And then you can sort of, right, well, how do you hit this lower? How do you hit it higher? How do you hit it softer? How do you hit it spinnier?
And that's my kind of rule for people I teach as well. It's get good with one wedge and get good with one 8-iron or 9-iron. A good bump and run club.
Yeah.
And a good pitching club.
Yeah.
Just get really good with both of them, and you'll be flying.
Yes.
The other wedges, I think, are there more for if you need to shot create. So if you need to hit a little delicate one over a bunker, if you need to get one over a tree that's there, or you're playing a course with raised greens. But I still think a lot of that conversation is reserved for your category 1, maybe your lower category 2 handicappers anyway.
Yeah, and I think 58 is as far as you need to go. I think everyone underappreciates how hard you have to hit a 60 to make it go.
Yeah, I agree.
See so many people pitching with a 60 and go, oh, short again.
I think I've said to you before on this, apart from the fact I don't generally play sort of 3/4 shots and full shots well with a 56, I think a 56 is the most loft I would need around a green. I'd feel more than comfortable enough opening that up a little bit. Yeah. Plenty of loft there. I just, for some reason, I don't like them I've always had a 54. Yeah. So I like the 80-yard, 90-yard shots with a 54.
Yeah, it's interesting because like Tommy Fleetwood, 52, 58.
Yeah. But 60 degrees not needed.
And if you're getting talent, like if you're getting good and you're getting better and better and you're spending more time on that end of the bag, you should be able to do everything with a 52 or a 58. And then if you're, a beginner, you're not overcomplicating it.
Yeah,
with
again,
an
I think
extra wedge.
All of these questions, and hopefully people are getting the idea that we're splitting this in my head, especially I'm splitting this into category of golfer as well.
Yeah.
Because put it in a scratch golfer's hand, a 3 handicapper's hand, they're generally going to be hitting it longer off the tee. And as you've just alluded to, they're spending a lot more time around the greens or within maybe a 9-iron distance. So you say to them, you don't need to stack the top of your bag where your hybrids are and your 2-irons and your 3 woods are.
Yeah, if you're competent hitting
because you're hitting your longer stuff well anyway off the tee.
Yeah.
So you need to really stack your bag down the bottom end, create as much game as you can.
Yes.
And then with your higher handicappers, we're saying you're probably not bombing it up to the green.
Yeah.
So you don't need to stack that wedge side of your bag, but you'd need a lot of options when it comes to 5 hybrids, 4 hybrids, 11 woods, 7 woods, whatever you need.
Yeah. Interesting. So little like summary there on technology. A little bit more loft on driver.
Yep.
Backspin is your friend. It will keep it a little bit straighter.
Yep.
You don't have to have high launch, low spin. When you're getting good, when you're competent, when your swing's in a good position, yes, maybe, definitely, by all means. Wrong clubs, make sure we've not got clubs doing identical jobs and that they are right for you. And wedges, I would say, don't have a look at what's actually necessary for your handicap. Are you overcomplicating it for yourself?
Too many options.
Have you got too many and there's an underused one? Have you got too much loft? I see people with 64s and you think, ugh, what are you doing with that?